Georgia, a southeastern U.S. state with a rich history and cultural heritage, has also been the setting for some of the country's most shocking and complex criminal cases. From serial killings and terrorist bombings to deeply entrenched organized crime rings, Georgia's criminal landscape has drawn intense scrutiny over the decades. The FBI, the United States' leading federal law enforcement agency, has been involved in solving some of Georgia's most high-profile and disturbing cases. Their involvement has often been pivotal, bringing advanced forensic science, psychological profiling, surveillance tools, and undercover operations to bear on investigations that local police could not resolve alone. In this triple-episode documentary, we explore three of the most notorious criminal cases in Georgia. 1. The Atlanta child murders. 2. The Centennial Olympic Park bombing. 3. The rise and fall of the Dixie Mafia and its corruption network. Each episode provides a deep dive into the circumstances surrounding the crimes, the victims, the suspects, and most importantly, how the FBI worked to bring justice, sometimes successfully and sometimes controversially. These stories are not just about crime, but about power, race, politics, and how society chooses to respond when its very fabric is under threat. Between 1979 and 1981, Atlanta, Georgia was gripped by terror. Over the course of nearly 2 years, more than 24 African American children and young adults were murdered. The victims, most of them boys aged between 7 and 17, were disappearing from neighborhoods around the city. Their bodies were later found in remote wooded areas, rivers, and abandoned buildings. As the body count increased, public fear grew. Communities became paralyzed. Parents refused to let their children out of sight. The local police appeared overwhelmed, under-equipped, and at times indifferent. Many in the Black community accused the authorities of not taking the crimes seriously because the victims were poor and African American. Suspect Wayne Williams and the investigation. In 1981, a breakthrough came almost by accident. While conducting surveillance near a bridge over the Chattahoochee River, where several bodies had been found, police heard a splash. A car sped away. The car was stopped, and the driver was identified as 23-year-old Wayne Williams, a local music promoter. Over the next weeks, forensic evidence began to accumulate. Fibers found on victims matched those from Williams' home, car, and dog. In a highly publicized trial, Wayne Williams was convicted, not for all the murders, but for 2 adult murders believed to be linked to the child killings. Though never tried for the child victims, authorities closed many of the cases after his conviction. However, controversy remains. Some believe the investigation was flawed, racially biased, and that Williams was made a scapegoat. FBI forensic techniques and arrests. The FBI was heavily involved in the investigation. They introduced fiber analysis, behavioral profiling, and advanced crime scene reconstruction techniques to the case. It was one of the first major cases where profiling played a key role. The FBI profile suggested a young Black male with knowledge of the neighborhoods and access to transportation. Williams fit that profile. The Bureau's laboratory processed thousands of fiber samples and conducted extensive comparisons to materials in Williams's home. Despite the conviction, skepticism endures. Civil rights leaders, journalists, and even some former FBI agents have called for the reopening of several of the unsolved cases. In recent years, the Atlanta Police Department announced plans to re-examine evidence using new DNA technology. The Atlanta child murders remain one of the darkest chapters in Georgia's history, and a cautionary tale of how fear, race, and pressure for closure can affect justice. In 1996, Atlanta was chosen to host the Centennial Olympic Games, a global event meant to showcase the city as a symbol of progress, unity, and modernity. Over 2 million people visited during the Summer Games, with events being held across various venues. Security was tight, but the sheer size of the event made complete protection impossible. Centennial Olympic Park served as a gathering space for attendees to enjoy concerts and celebrations between sports events. Bombing incident and initial confusion. On the night of July 27, 1996, during a concert at the park, a bomb hidden in a backpack detonated near a broadcast tower. The explosion killed 1 person directly and injured more than 100 others. A second person died from a heart attack related to the chaos. Panic spread instantly. Emergency services flooded the area. Investigators discovered that the bomb was a homemade pipe bomb packed with nails and screws, designed to cause maximum injury. Shockingly, a security guard named Richard Jewell had discovered the suspicious backpack minutes before the blast and alerted authorities. Initially hailed as a hero, Jewell's life turned upside down when he became the FBI's primary suspect. Richard Jewell's false accusation and Eric Rudolph's capture of the FBI, under immense public and political pressure, leaked information to the press suggesting Jewell was under investigation. The media frenzy that followed was brutal. Jewell's name and face were everywhere, accused of planting the bomb to become a hero. Eventually, the FBI cleared him, but the damage was done. The real bomber, Eric Robert Rudolph, would not be caught until 2003. Rudolph was a far-right extremist who later confessed to the Olympic bombing and other attacks, including bombings of abortion clinics and a lesbian nightclub. He was sentenced to multiple life terms without parole. This episode revealed both the strengths and weaknesses of federal investigations. While the FBI ultimately found the right suspect, their initial assumptions and the handling of Jewell's case exposed flaws in their process, especially when pressured by public expectations and media scrutiny. Organized crime in the southern United States doesn't always get the same attention as the mafia in New York or Chicago, but it is just as dangerous. The Dixie Mafia is a loosely connected network of criminals that operated across the southern states, especially in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. Unlike traditional mafias, the Dixie Mafia had no central leadership. Its members included hitmen, drug dealers, moonshiners, and corrupt law enforcement officials. They used violence, bribery, and intimidation to maintain power, often targeting judges, politicians, and witnesses. In Georgia, their influence was especially strong in rural counties where law enforcement was underfunded or outright corrupt. FBI stings on corrupt officials. In the 1980s and 1990s, the FBI launched a series of covert operations aimed at rooting out Dixie Mafia influence and local corruption. One of the most notable was Operation Greylord, which led to the indictment of dozens of public officials. Though that operation focused on Chicago, it inspired similar campaigns in Georgia. One such operation in Georgia led to the arrest of a sheriff who had been working with known criminals, helping cover up drug trafficking and even homicides. In another case, a judge was caught accepting bribes in exchange for favorable rulings. FBI agents used wiretaps, informants, and even undercover operatives posing as criminals to gain access to secret meetings and record illegal dealings. Major takedowns and long-term impact. The FBI's efforts gradually dismantled the network's hold in many areas. Dozens of Dixie Mafia figures were imprisoned. While not completely eradicated, their power weakened significantly. One major victory came when authorities shut down a money laundering and drug trafficking ring operating out of a Georgia trucking company. Millions in assets were seized. Federal prosecutors cited the case as a blueprint for handling future organized crime in rural America. The takedowns had a broader impact, too. Many Georgia counties instituted reforms to increase oversight of local law enforcement. Whistleblower protections were strengthened, and more rigorous background checks became standard in sheriff departments. Despite these victories, experts warn that organized crime evolves. While the Dixie Mafia may have declined, new threats, like cartel networks and cybercrime, have emerged in the region. From child murders that terrified a city, to a bombing that shook the world stage, and a criminal network that reached into the heart of public office, Georgia's most infamous crimes tell a broader story about American society, law enforcement, and the constant tension between power and justice. The FBI's role has often been heroic, yet also flawed. Their technology, dedication, and courage have led to major breakthroughs. But these cases also show the danger of rushing to judgment, the human cost of investigative errors, and the need for constant accountability. These stories remain relevant, not just as history, but as lessons in justice, resilience, and truth.